Hi there, it's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles, and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind, on my mind, and we'll put our heads and hearts together, and we will come up with a way to go from stuck to happy as fuck in a short amount of time as possible. Today, I titled this, The Cost of Freedom is a Wet Blanket. I have so many idea pieces that I'm going to try to pull in together, so I think I can do it and still sound coherent because this is really what is up. And I'll tell you, today is the first of an eclipse. We've got a new moon, and I think it's I can't remember. It's a solar eclipse tonight. And that begins an eclipse season, meaning there's going to be another one May 5th. So there's just a lot of energy that's really moving. And when you talk about eclipse, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is a total eclipse of the heart, right? And you think of something closing in until it's completely obscured, to where it really is a season of endings and beginnings, because they are built on each other. They are intrinsically tied. We can't have a beginning without an ending. It's hard to have, we think that there's endings that just are ends, but they're actually new beginnings. And we often don't acknowledge this, which is how we sometimes get stuck in our grief and in the yuck and sadness and heaviness of an ending. And those feelings are meant to be had, to grieve a space, to mourn the loss of something that was potentially or something that mattered to us, that was meaningful. But we also need to let it go and let that grief usher us into the new. And we don't have to get stuck there. So with this, how we always generally start is a definition, a outline of terms. And so when we talk about freedom, I think all three of the definitions that I looked up, it's a condition. And it's a condition of not having restraints, of not being controlled. And so if we're looking at this season and an eclipse and freedom and looking to move into a condition of not being controlled, of being unrestrained, to have fewer or no rules, we're going to have to end and sacrifice. It's going to cost us something, because we've all been told freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free, and it costs the ultimate sacrifice, which we think is our life. But here's one of the first things I'm going to say. It's not costing us our life. It's going to cost our identity, which most of our brains are wired to think those are the exact same thing, which is why we fight so hard to defend who we believe we are and defend how we've done things in the past. And perhaps it's time for eclipse season to eclipse that shit, because it isn't helping anymore. A lot of us know ourselves as one who struggles, one who tries. I am a resistor. I resist a lot of things. In some ways I'm easy, go with the flow. And then sometimes I'm like, fuck this shit. This isn't how it was supposed to go. And I resist it like hell, and surrender is one of the last things that I do. There's people who are, I am logical. I'm a sense maker. Things gotta make sense. Therefore, I can't have all my feelings, because I need things to be orderly and fit in a box and be contained. Or I just need things to be rational. I don't like when things are irrational or inexplainable. I'm a negative thinker. I'm an overthinker. I'm a perfectionist. A lot of us are, I'm a kid from a dysfunctional childhood. I'm a gifted kid. I've got all these childhood issues. I'm a trauma survivor. Oh, I've had all these things going on. Oh, I've been in a narcissist, abusive relationship. All of these things, this eclipse season is actually asking us to let them go, to be eclipsed, to not be part of our lives anymore, to let ourselves have a new beginning. So we have to say goodbye to some things. And the cost of freedom really is a bit of an illusion, because it's gonna feel like we're dying, but we're actually going to become more alive than we've ever been if we're willing to do this. So that's where I said in this, what if the cost of freedom wasn't costly at all? It was a love sacrifice, and it actually was freeing in the offering. To where we've been told and even shown, and let me be honest, when we get into shadow work and we're really looking to explore how we've been limiting ourselves, it's not comfortable to gain those awarenesses, to see where no matter how many ways that we slice it or perceive it or explain it, or how many people get on our side, or even when somebody says something exactly the way that we want, we can't change how we feel inside, because we were the ones that set this all up. Everything that's yuck in our life, we're either stuck because we're withholding love, or we are stuck because we believe it's something outside of ourselves, and the truth is, so within as without, because it's us that created whatever dynamic was going on in our life in order for us to finally pay attention, to go in, to give ourselves the love that we've been asking for, to show up in a different way, to actually start. A lot of what I do in my work is I'm teaching people how to reparent themselves, because we didn't get our basic needs met. The love that we needed for optimal development wasn't available. But if we just keep going through life using that as an excuse and never actually developing it, cultivating it, asking for it, receiving it, being one that gives it to ourselves, as long as we refuse that and resist that, we will stay stuck. Because it can't be on the outside and coming inside. It has to be from within. It comes through us. Otherwise, we really are powerless. And that feels like crap. And that's actually the feeling that the one that feels like crap, to where you're like, I got to change this. That's oftentimes when we finally decide, okay, let me try a different way. Okay? So freedom isn't free. It's going to cost who we knew ourselves as. But the sooner that we can sort of come to terms with that's what it's going to take, it gets easier. And then at the end, I'm going to do some actual steps that actually also make that easier. So I want to get to some other points that I had. Because freedom is a condition of being unlimited. It's not having as many rules. It's not being controlled by any other, meaning you're not at the effect of anything anymore. Meaning if somebody's a total asshole, it doesn't ruin your day. When you're not getting the love that you need, it's not because you're not worthy or deserving. It's just what people are able to deliver at the moment. It doesn't have anything to do with you. That's freedom, because then you maintain your sovereignty, your autonomy, your ability to choose at any moment. It's not a conditional choice of if this, then that. If they behave this way, then I do this. That's conditional love. It's what we all know. If I do good on my diet, then I can have this, which is ridiculous. A lot of us set these things up, and we love ourselves conditionally. It's unconditional. It's total freedom. You just get the love because you decided you get the love. And that's what a lot of this is finally just deciding you can have it. That's what the surrendering, the sacrifice, the giving up of your identity is not as someone who tries, who struggles, who overthinks, who negatively thinks. That is what I'm saying. The cost of freedom is surrendering that wet blanket that you've been to your life and your future. Stop being the one that pokes holes in your dreams and then accusing everybody else of doing it. The reason it hurts is because it was you that did it first, that believed it first. Stop doubting your worth. You've tried it long enough. You've been living by that long enough. A lot of this eclipse season is just saying, hey, can we just close the door on this stuff? We've ran this experiment long enough. Let's just try something new just for kicks and giggles. You know what that is? That's play. Do you know what play is? Lack of rules and unconditionality. It's fun just for the fun of it. Do you know what that is? Freedom. Oh my goodness, if we surrender this wet blanket of what if it goes wrong, what if it doesn't turn out, what if I get rejected, what if I get abandoned, what if I fail, what if we give up those what ifs and start asking more empowering questions? Like, what if this goes right? How can this turn out greater than I thought? What is working for me? What could work even better? The questions that I'm going to go again at the end is, how do I want to show up? What lights me up? What can I add here? Instead of constantly taking things away and trying to shrink ourselves, our environments, and our circumstances so that we can control them, we start to expand and hold capacity for a greater level of space, greater awareness, more love for ourselves finally to be in that. That's when we start breaking out of these shells of these limiting identities. If we're going to be talking about freedom and being unlimited, unrestrained, it's time that we give up our role as the abuser. It's what we learned. It's what we know. And even though it sucks, it's what we're actually comfortable with. And we do it so well, and we're hard on ourselves, and oh, that's going to get us what? More of what we already have. If we actually want something different, we have to do something different. So we have to give up who we know ourselves as, a victim, a trier, a struggler, an overthinker, a perfectionist, because perfectionism, among others, is a form of abuse. We have to give up ourselves as the wet blanket, as the abuser, as the postponer, as the one who can't have it, as the one who's overwhelmed, as the basket case, as the hot mess, as the overreactor. We start giving up these identities that are limiting so that we can have a broader definition and experience of ourselves. I took a challenge last summer. It becomes so common to, yeah, I'm my own worst enemy. I'm my own worst critic. And why do we just accept these things? This eclipse season is actually setting us up to say, hey, you could close the door on those. And actually, when it comes back, it kind of swept that all away. That's actually the energy of what's possible now. Now, that dark period might be like what my friend calls the goo phase. There's actually a point when the caterpillar enters the chrysalis, it actually becomes goo, and it's neither caterpillar nor butterfly in the in-between. That's what's so uncomfortable. That's what most people fear. That's what most people have only dipped their toe in, that actually that's where they stop. But that's where the badass keeps going. I know it's going to come together, and I'm going to reconfigure into something greater if I just keep going. That Japanese proverb, fall 7 times, stand up 8, that's all it takes to win. It's so ridiculously simple. It's just not always easy. So a few tips that are going to go to help make this a little bit easy, and it's always things that you already know because you've already lived this over and over more than once. But we are going to be saying goodbye to our identities, which in a lot of that is just judgment. This really tiny definition of who we are that for a lot of people, especially when they start, is just a list of characteristics and preferences. And we are so much more than that. And then we might expand it into perceptions, and this is what other people see from us or what you're hoping people will see from you, but that's still us living based on an external reality, trying to manipulate and get an outcome to show that we're okay. We're actually going to give up all of that, a little at a time, of course, so that we can totally lose our minds. But you will notice that you get a little disoriented when you lose reference points, but it is liberating. Why we don't do this full time, as far as being able to have more ease with it all the time, is you will notice that it takes practice. You have to recalibrate your nervous system. You've got a physical body, so that actually has to calibrate with this re-identification thing, because your body's actually expressing who you believe you are. So that if you change who you believe you are, your body actually is going to be working with you and expressing differently, but it has a lag time because it's on a third dimension. So it's more physical density. So your thoughts and your ideas can change really fast. It's going to take a little bit to see it externalize even in yourself. And the more and more you do this work, the faster and the less lag time that's going to have, okay? So knowing that, but then also, shit's just going to happen sometimes. And sometimes it is going to be coming hot and heavy. It's going to be a lot at once. It's always going to be because it's what you asked for and what you're ready for. Whatever is coming at you, you can handle, otherwise you wouldn't get it. So starting to trust in those things. But sometimes when it is a lot, and if you're like me and still working with, I have to practice feeling my feelings in the moment instead of wanting a convenient time, wanting my feelings to make sense. Because if there is, and there is, trauma that's going in here, there's some weird associations that are never going to make sense because they're right-brained. They were formed at weird times with lots of different stimuli. So the more that we demand our feelings make sense, the more resistant we're going to be, and the harder this is going to be. It's going to take longer. So if we just start to recognize, and also knowing that the external, as far as being a reflection of the internal, is never telling you that you're doing anything wrong. There's never anything wrong with you. Never, ever. Shit's just going to happen. Sometimes just yuck, awful, sad, creepy, whatever bad things happen. They aren't happening bad because you're bad. All that it is we're perceiving them as bad because we're only getting a snippet of what it is at the time and extrapolating and saying this is what the whole is. So the more that we start to relax and know that whatever we're perceiving in the moment is only part of what's going on, and that the dots will connect, hindsight is 20/20, the dust will settle, whatever metaphor you're using, it's going to come together and it will start to make sense. The ahas will come through, but they're not all going to be instantly available, again, because we're working in a three-dimensional reality to where other things have to sort of fall together and fall into place. So it's almost like sometimes we need that distance, that greater perspective, a little bit of space from whatever is occurring with ourselves in order to see it bigger. But when you're in it, that can be hard to do. So sometimes you just have to rely on the knowing. This too shall pass. This is only a little bit of what's going on right now. Also, your feelings aren't going to make sense. I already said that. But knowing that it's happening on a side of your brain that is not logically ordering things in chronology, sequential order. It's going in right brain that's just associational. This level of sunlight, this external temperature, this color red, that breath pattern, that's how it's putting things together. Not in neat, orderly slices of time. That's what your left brain does. And when you're fully present, they are synchronized and working together so that they can get organized that way. But when there's any type of trauma patterning, re-triggering, and processing through that, it's not going to make sense. And then for those of you like myself who are very sensitive and very emotional, sometimes we just, again, have to rely on the knowing that feelings aren't facts. Even if I'm feeling this way doesn't necessarily mean that's what is. Especially because we're saying things like, I feel like a failure, I feel unlovable, I feel inadequate. And those aren't actually feelings, those are perceptions of ourselves. They're limiting definitions, you know, the shit we're trying to break free from. Okay, so we have to know that they're not facts. They're going to be determined by hormones, hydration status, level of sleep, your present company, what you've eaten. Like, I can't pretend that gluten is actually good for my brain. You know, if I eat too much, I just don't have great thoughts. So I just have to be aware of some of those things. And then there's always the week before my period where I'm like, JOYLYN, just don't believe anything you think, especially about yourself or your body, okay? You are not the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man. It's okay. You can go out in public, really. Okay? Because these are the embellishments and the realities that our brain is saying is real, but it's not actually matching. So having a better handle on our feelings, and there's a lot of tools, and you've had a lot of experience of living through this, so sometimes it's actually time to start integrating and leaning on your own experience. And for those of us who are emotional and do get a lot of value from our emotions, there still can be some room for improvement of not believing them all as fact, of letting some logic in, letting some rationality win some time, giving a little emphasis to this prefrontal cortex to give perspective, because that's the benefit of having a prefrontal cortex and the rationality. It allows for some perspective. Now, for those of who have been dominated and made wrong for having our feelings, that's where we'll tend to be resistant. But again, it might be time to say goodbye of letting our feelings run the show and starting to balance the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the emotional and the rationality, and start playing with them on our terms, because we want to, because we're ready to have a higher level of living, laughing, loving. Okay, that was just totally cliche. But a higher level of freedom, so that we're not ruled by our emotions. We're not ruled by someone else's rationality and demanding our feelings make sense that then we've then taken on. We can start actually saying what's going to work, what's not going to work. So I'm coming to the last one that I wanted to say is the bottom line when it comes to freedom and sorting through these limiting identities, limiting beliefs, old behavior patterns, coping mechanisms. You know how in the 80s there was that slogan, or 80s, 90s, the plastics makes it possible? You know, like, oh, look at all this shit we can do with plastic. Okay. I changed it to pragmatics makes it possible. Is it useful or not? That's it. Not how comfortable or good does it feel, because guess what? Some of our shitty feelings feel really good because we'll get a dopamine hit from finding out what's wrong with us, because discovery is fun regardless of what it is. Yeah. So until we actually get a total handle and mastery on using our curiosity for our benefit, we got to go with pragmatics of is it useful or not? And this is where we can start including our bodies, as far as our bodies will give us moment to moment information if we tap into them. And you can't do it from here. You can't be like, does this sound like a good idea? Because guess what? All the old ones are going to sound safer and better. Okay, not your smartest move. So what you got to do is ask, hey, what's going to get created if I choose this? And then you let your body, do you take a deep breath? Do you feel kind of like this expansion? Do you feel like your eyebrows kind of move and your shoulders go down? That's a go for that. That's an opening. If it makes you want to clench up, clench your butt, clench your stomach, but you're not exercising, like I said, jumping to conclusions is an exercise. If it makes you tighten up and kind of recoil in fear, now your mind's going to be like, that's what we pick because that means we're going to survive. But your body's actually saying that's not true. That's not true for what's actually present and happening right now. Your body's got a consciousness of its own, and it's a tool for you to use. So if it's useful, it creates an opening. There's a little bit of relaxation in this, because the problem that most of us have is we're stuck and having more of the same because we're thinking the same thoughts, and we've just gone into habitual survival mode. We need to break out of that. Our bodies can actually help us in the moment when we ask a question if this is useful. If it's useful, if there's an opening, you choose that. If it's not pragmatic, like it doesn't create anything, and I'll give you an example here, you set it down. And let me tell you, you're going to do that, for one, for the rest of your life, and two, especially at the beginning, like every half second. Because you're going to be so trained to go to, I'm failing, I'm fucking up, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I can't get this, my money situation is whatever. Oh, I wish I could be like this and other people have it and I don't, and why can't I, and why doesn't it, and it was supposed to. Like, we have to be like, oh wait, that creates this shit that I don't like, that I'm experiencing presently, that's creating this clenching, this shallow breathing, this low expression of protein expression to where I'm having more discomfort, disease. That's what that is. I got to set it down. I got to set it down. And you know how when you've been holding on to something for a really long time, how at first your hands like they hurt when you let go? It's kind of like that. Oh, but I don't want to let go. Oh, I don't want to have been wrong about this the whole time. I've totally done that. That's why I'm laughing. You set it down and you turn the other way. And then you go back because it's there and it's almost got this magnetic pull. But then you set it down and you go back. You set it down and you pivot. You set it down and you pivot. And first you're going to be dizzy to where you're just going to be like, fuck this. I'm going to go watch Netflix. It's okay. Fuck this. I'm going to take a nap. It's okay. You're going to need breaks and resets. But this is what recalibrating the nervous system and changing your life looks like. This is the cost of freedom, is actually just putting the reps in. Getting clear on, is it useful or not useful? If it's not useful, I set it down. And when I say useful, it's like, what is this creating? If I'm living by a belief that magic doesn't happen for me, it's, I guess, useful, but is it fun? Is it enlivening? That's what I'm calling useful, fun and enlivening. Is it going to create more? Is it going to create less? If I believe that I'm not enough, therefore I'm not doing enough, I'm never enough, I'm constantly disappointing people, and hey, that's what I'm actually struggling with right now, because it is deep in there. I even told somebody yesterday, one of my beliefs about myself is I am a living disappointment. That's one of the things I believe about myself, and he's like, that doesn't do anything, and you know what? He's right. It creates crap. It creates me feeling bad on the day-to-day. It creates me needing coping mechanisms, which is largely eating crap that actually doesn't feel good for my gut. It creates me doing my butterfly swirling pattern of I'll think I'll do these things, but then I don't do them because it's just going to be disappointing anyway. Ridiculous. It's not creating anything good. And yeah, it's up because we're going next level, and that one's really, I think the eclipse is like, let's get rid of that shit. It's up to me to say goodbye in order to have a new beginning as one who is a powerful creatrix, meaning I take control of where I direct my curiosity. No longer about why not, why can't this happen, but what can I do? Why is this possible? What makes this possible, and how do I do that? That's what I'm going to change my curiosity to. Also, I'm going to end the one who needs my feelings to make sense, because even though I talk ridiculously long-windedly about how feelings don't make any sense and feelings aren't facts, I keep wanting them to make sense because, I don't know, maybe that means I crack the code on something. But they don't ever make sense until later. So you might as well, JOYLYN, just fucking relax. And like I said, sometimes in that in-between, like when we're talking shadow work and emotional handling, one of the hardest ones is restlessness and boredom in the in-between, when things are actually working out for you, but they haven't all yet, so you can't necessarily see it or feel it. You go play. You go relax. It's so counterintuitive. You don't try harder. That just makes shit harder. You fucking peace out and relax, okay? Now, 2 more minutes to go, and I'm going to get this in. This all is ridiculously simple to do. If it works, work it. If it doesn't, don't. You know it doesn't work because you don't like how it feels. You don't like when it's showing up, so do something else. But why is the something else so hard to do sometimes? Because we don't know what else we could do. That's what the subconscious needs in order to not continue to trip up. Because this whole self-sabotage thing is a myth. It's actually your brain braining, your subconscious demonstrating and expressing how precious you are. It just wants to keep you alive, and it cannot imagine things. So you have to use your conscious awareness and your intention, tap into your superconscious imagination to call in and feed your subconscious memories of what it feels like to feel good. Now, how you do this, how every single one of the Happiness Clinic programs is based on the future forward focus. You look at a map. Where do I want to go? That's how you plan trips. Where do I want to go? So the question we ask that's going to help this whole process, how do I want to show up here? How do I want to know myself as? Here's how I've known myself as, this limiting identity that I'm about ready to eclipse the shit out of that, because even the solar and lunar eclipses are telling me it's the time I can say goodbye to this bullshit. Okay, so I want to say that. I'm done with being limited. I'm done with being scared of everything. I'm done with everybody else having a say and I don't have any. I'm done with everybody else being obnoxious and I can't say anything. I'm done with being perfect. I'm done with following all the rules. I'm done with having all these rules. Whatever, you're done with that. Okay, good. But you can't go off of that unless you have somewhere else to go. Otherwise, you'll just end up there. So, how do you want to know yourself as? Badass, brave, confident, calm, non-reactive, yeah, peaceful, enjoyable, delightful, playful. Playful's a big one of mine because I can get real fucking serious about this shit, okay? JOYLYN, you gotta do this better, righter, now, faster. Or I could just fucking be a little bit more playful and be like, I did that thing again. Hee hee, that was funny. Okay, back to being happy. How do you want to know yourself as? How do you want to show up on the regular? Know that for yourself. I always advise keep it simple down to 3. They will change over time, but pick your priorities. If you have like 10 of them, that's too many to choose. You won't remember when things are challenging, when it's kind of coming hot and heavy. So narrow it down to 1 to 3. I want to know myself as confident. I want to know myself as outspoken. I want to know myself as brave, bold. You pick it. But know that. Then you can also add, what do I want to add to my life? We're so good at taking things out, detoxing, eliminating, minimizing, and there is benefit to that. But we can actually enhance that process by adding good stuff in at the same time. So instead of requiring that all this stuff get fixed or figured out before we can move forward, we actually start adding more of what we want at the same time. So what would you like more of in your life? If it's more playfulness, how do you put it in there? Get curious about how you put that in there. If it's confident, how do you put that in there? Maybe it's more sleep. Maybe I'd like to add more sleep to my life. Maybe I'd like to add more nutrition to my life. Instead of taking out toxins and just worrying about that, maybe I'd like to add more water. It's always a good idea. Maybe I'd like to add deep breathing. Maybe I'd like to add meditation. So there's lots that you can add that are good, but instead of them being supposed to's, you can just, hey, I'd like to enhance my life this way. I can add more time in nature, more prayer, more time with friends. I can host more happy hours. Like, there are lots of fun options out there. So how do I want to show up? What do I want to add to my life? And what lights me up? Because a lot of times we just get too busy to care about ourselves, and we just got good at taking care of other people and taking care of the bills and managing our stress, which is actually another form of care, and appreciating our problems, which is another form of care, but we forgot ourselves and our bodies. So what lights me up? I like running. I like jogging. I like camping out and sleeping under the stars. I like making smoothies in the morning. I like having an extra 5 minutes at work when nobody's there. Find out what lights you up. Is it volleyball? That's one of mine. Is it cross-country skiing? Whatever it is, start to find ways to put that in. Then, your step 2, write about it, read about it, talk about, change the content of your conversation. Not about what's been missing, not about how much you want to put it in, but about how you're going to get it in. What you are doing, what you are thinking about now. Changing the content and making it more real in the present. So watch how you're talking, not you're wishing, hoping, but this is what I'm actually doing. And then you start talking that way, watch yourself start taking action. It's going to be really exciting. Then you practice the pivot, because it is habitual to be your wet blanket and be like, yeah, but I can't because of this. Oh, the weather sucks. Oh, this doesn't make sense. Oh, let me do this and this and this. You have to unwrap yourself from your own wet blanketness, all right? Ditch the wet blanket. Pivot. Set it down. Move away. And you're going to be like, oh, but it was kind of warm. It was kind of cozy. No, it's wet. It's gross. Okay, set it down. That's just a practice from now until the day you die. It's going to get easier. Trust me. But at the beginning, it's going to take some effort. But the faster you start, the faster you start to see change. Okay? So this is, the cost of freedom is nothing to be feared. It's actually a love offering, a gift to yourself that in and of itself relieves you from the debt of having to be obligated to to who you were and used to be. You don't have to be that anymore. Your debt's resolved, you are absolved, and you can be something else. The freedom's already yours, and it's you get it whenever you say so. This is the how. You look at your future forward, name your targets so you know where you're going, bring it into the present by writing about it, talking about it, even feeling the feelings of it in your meditations and stuff, and then actually doing it. And then you're really going to feel it like in present time. And then you, every time you notice you're back in a habit of going to worst case scenario or finding reasons why you're going to postpone it, you set that down and you look at something else. You look to how you can be it now, have it now. Look forward to having it, and then start acknowledging when you do have it, even if it's the teeniest, tiniest little fraction of a second. But acknowledge it was there, it was real. That's how you get more of it. All right? The freedom is yours, my friends. You can be unlimited. You do not have to be who you used to be. And even the sun and the moon, with the new moon, with the eclipses, with all of this, is actually giving you an energetic oomph to say goodbye to the shit that's no longer contributing in a way that maybe it did, or maybe the way that it was supposed to but never did. It doesn't even matter. You can have a new beginning. You'll just have to say goodbye to some of the shit that wasn't working. All right? That's my invitation to you. And if you would like some help in this, because like I said, ridiculously simple, not always easy, good to have somebody in your corner that is doing this, has done through this, gone through this, helps you avoid some of the pitfalls like giving up too early, all of that. Let's talk. You can always direct message me or get on ihappentothings.com, and there's a button up at the top that says schedule a call for clarity, and we will find a program or resource that will work for you. Because it is time. You are valuable. You're worth it. And let's start challenging all the places that say that you're not. Let's challenge the habits that keep you stuck so you can actually have a new level of freedom and a new identity, a greater, more fuller self-expression. All right? That's what I want for you, and thank you so much for staying with me for a couple extra minutes. I love you dearly, and I'm already looking forward to next week. Until then, mwah, 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 mwah. Love you.